Yesterday Upon the Stair by Pit Viper of Doom. Chapter 47. Inasa's skull is pounding, but he tries not to let it show on his face. All things considered, he's in a pretty foul mood, at least by his own standards, but he tries not to let that show either. He remembers almost nothing useful, just the girl's face and the sting of a needle, before waking up draped over a toilet tank with one boot soaking in the bowl, and a woman standing over him dressed in the uniform of Gang Orca's agency and looking incredibly relieved to find him crammed into a bathroom stall. The indignity would be bad enough, but then he finds out that he missed the main exam. The rest of the participants are outside receiving their scores, and Inasa has spent the entire thing drugged in a public bathroom. Then he finds out he's lucky to be alive, because his attacker was none other than Toga Himiko of the League of Villains. She has the highest estimated body count of the League's current lineup, which means that the fact that he was found drugged instead of dead was at best statistically unlikely. But it's no use dwelling on what-ifs. For now, he finds himself bustled into a room where his homeroom teacher, the exam proctor, Gang Orca, and a handful of other concerned-looking adults are waiting with... Oh, just his luck! He's disheveled, his foot and the edge of his cape are soaked in toilet water, he has a vicious headache, and he's being pushed into a room with Todoroki, Shoto, and his green-haired friend with the creepy eyes. What are they doing here? He comes up more confused than angry. If he was attacked by a villain, he'd be debriefed, wouldn't he? Unless... Wait, did they get attacked too? Gang Orca nods.
From what we can tell, it looks as if Todoroki Shoto was the main target of this attack. Toga used her quirk to copy your form in order to remain undetected.
Shocked, Inasa shoots them another glance. Todoroki gives him a look that he can't read. His friend's face is bland and emotionless. Between the two of them, something curdles in Inasa's gut. The caustic mix of dread, anger, relief, and a retroactive terror within him clashes with the bland calm he sees around him, and it sets his teeth on edge. Did you get a good look at her? His own sensei rests a hand on his shoulder. Did she say anything to you? It's no good, Inasa says, shaking his head. I was heading out to the main exam, then she was there sticking a needle in me, and then the next second I was waking up. She didn't say anything. She didn't look anything like the pictures they have up either. Must have taken someone else's form first. Some girl from Ketsubutu. As he goes on to describe her in more detail, Todoroki stands up straighter. I saw her before. She tried to attack me in the first round, but I eliminated her before she could get close. Beside him, the other boy shifts from foot to foot and says nothing. Midoriya, one of the other adults, recognizable as the underground hero Eraserhead, addresses Todoroki's classmate. The name tugs at Inasa's memory. He knows that name, doesn't he? Go wait out by the bus. You've done enough.
Just a moment.
Gang Orca speaks up.
I'm curious. You did well warning me while minimizing the risk of alerting the villain. She might have panicked otherwise. But how did you know? Are you familiar with your Arashi?
Not really. Midoriya's voice is just as emotionless as the rest of him. We just met today. But I know Toga a little. When... He shoots a glance at Inasa. I was with the League for 3 days, and Toga doesn't care much about boundaries. You get to know her whether you want to or not. Inasa gapes at him. Midoriya Izuku, of course! That whole mess in Camino was to save him and one of his classmates from the League. She's an actress, but I noticed things when I came to help hold off Gang Orca. Midoriya goes on. The way she moved, the way she fought, the expression on her face, they were familiar, really uncomfortably familiar. And I heard some of the stuff she was saying to Todoroki, and that confirmed it. Such as? Eraserhead prompts. Nothing that I care to repeat. Todoroki says icily. Attacks against my family, that sort of thing. She gets under your skin, Midoriya adds quietly. He leans over to bump Todoroki's shoulder gently. Like a tick. She's good at that. There's one more thing, Todoroki says. I believe Midoriya was also targeted. Just more indirectly than I was. Midoriya looks up like this is news to him too. When he came to bring me here, Toga stopped me from following right away. She held me back just long enough to greet him. She made a point of speaking with him. I don't know if she knew by then that he recognized her, but I'm pretty sure she wanted him to. I'm gonna sleep real good tonight, Midoriya remarks. There's a tight cough and Mira clears his throat to speak. If there's nothing more to be learned about the villain, then all that remains is to discuss the test itself. He nods to Midoriya. You already had a passing score to begin with, if anything. This incident confirms it. You have our thanks and congratulations. He looks to Todoroki. As for you, I'm afraid you'll have to attend the makeup exam in April. For the failing students. Wait, what? Midoriya says sharply, eyes snapping to Mira. It's the most emotion he has shown since Inasa walked in. Midoriya. Eraserhead warns. No, that's not fair, he protests. He was doing fine until she showed up. How can you fail him when she sabotaged him on purpose? Midoriya, it's fine, Todoroki says tersely. It's not fine. This isn't fair. I know for a fact you wouldn't have failed if she hadn't. I might as well have. Todoroki cuts him off. You weren't there, I was. I as good as failed. You didn't fail! You were attacked by a villain! That just makes it worse, doesn't it? Todoroki interrupts him again, and Midoriya twitches at his harsh tone. Forget the simulation. A real villain showed up and I played right into her hands. Don't you get it? She found a weak spot and got it on my head, and I made it easy for her. So drop it. The two of them glare at each other, and Midoriya looks away first. I phrased that badly, Mira says mildly. Neither Todoroki nor Yorashi have officially failed the exam. But because you were both sabotaged, our results are either non-existent or reliable, and therefore we must evaluate you both more accurately. I apologize for this, truly, and from what I've seen in your performances before this incident, I have every confidence that you will both pass in April. Remedial training will be required of you, but... He nods at Todoroki. If you believe that some shortcoming of yours left you vulnerable, then you'll agree that that will be useful for you. Midoriya shoots Mira an icy glare, but Todoroki elbows him. That's enough. Eraserhead speaks in a tone that discourages argument. There are a few things we need to discuss, but the three of you should return to your classmates. Todoroki doesn't wait for confirmation or for anyone to contradict Eraserhead before taking Midoriya's elbow and towing him out of the room. Yorashi bows, thanks them, and follows them out. The locker room is empty when Inasa goes to change back into his uniform. He leaves his costume with those of the rest of his classmates and fully intends to return to them as Eraserhead ordered. But then he steps out and hears voices coming from one of the side hallways that doesn't lead to anywhere important, where the students had no reason to go. He's alarmed at first, naturally, until he steps closer and recognizes Todoroki and Midoriya's voices. It's nothing more than curiosity that makes him creep closer to see. Neither of them needed to change like he did, so what reason would they have to delay obeying their own homeroom teacher? Inasa makes his way closer, as stealthily as he can manage, muffling his own footsteps with soft cushions of air, until he turns a corner and comes upon them. He's always thought he knew what to expect out of Todoroki Shoto, haughty looks and cold words, and much the same as what he sees in Todoroki Enji, and he hasn't known Midoriya long enough to expect anything at all. What he doesn't expect is to turn a corner and find them tucked away while the former talks the latter through a panic attack. Neither of them notice him, of course. Midoriya is too busy trembling violently, while Todoroki holds on to him and talks in a low, steady voice. It's all right, Midoriya. I'm sorry. You don't have anything to be sorry for. I should have known she was here the whole time, and I should have seen it. I should have known the second I stepped off that bus. I know she was watching. I just know it. Midoriya, it's me. I never miss things. I'm not supposed to miss things, but I missed her. Midoriya, and she got close enough to... She could have... If she wanted to, I mean, she was already there when I got back to you. Izuku, breathe. Inasa catches sight of the look on Todoroki's face, and it's jarring. It looks nothing like it did all those months ago when Todoroki shut it down without even looking in his direction. Maybe if Todoroki's eyes had looked like this back then, Inasa wouldn't have come to the conclusions he did. I should have known. Midoriya repeats, but his voice has lost its frantic edge. I should have known! They've been so quiet since Kamino! That's not our job yet, Todoroki replies. Then in a softer tone he adds, Sorry I snapped at you before. I know you were trying to help. It wasn't your fault, Todoroki. Well, it wasn't yours either. Is your dad gonna do anything when he finds out? Todoroki freezes for a moment, and something like fear flashes across his face just for an instant. No, doubt it. Master's too busy with his new workload. I'll be fine, Midoriya. I'll be taken in April, and I'll pass then. Don't worry about me, alright? I'll catch up soon. And as for Futoga Himiko, she didn't hurt me. She took your blood, Todoroki! You know what that means! And we all know about it. The heroes know about it. If she tries anything, then you'll be able to tell the difference, remember? A wet sniffle reaches Inasa's ears, and Todoroki pulls his friend into a hug and lets him cry into his chest. Belatedly, Inasa realizes that he's overstayed his welcome. This is between them, it has nothing to do with him, and his presence is an intrusion. Still softening his footsteps, he hurries back out to the parking lot. His classmates are curious and relieved to see him, of course. Cammy musses his hair, there's not much to work with, and calls him a scrub, and Mora-senpai gently nudges him for an explanation, but he shrugs and grins and fends off questions as best he can. Eventually, they take the hint, and leave him alone for now, and he sighs with relief. His headache is better than it was, but he's not much for explaining himself at the moment. The dull throb is finally ebbing when he looks up to see Midoriya and Todoroki crossing the parking lot together. Midoriya is looking around and eventually catches Inasa's eye and turns to Todoroki. They exchange words for a moment before jogging over, Midoriya leading and Todoroki following. Inasa steps toward them, bracing himself. He's not sure what this is about, and he's not sure if he likes or trusts these two, but it wouldn't hurt to give them the benefit of the doubt, would it? Yeah! He says. Okay, so... Midoriya looks a little pale and red-eyed, but he's noticeably less blank-faced than he was before. I know it's kind of awkward, and you don't know us very well, but I guess we just wanted to know if you were okay after everything. Oh! Inasa looks back and forth between the two of them. Midoriya seems sincere, if awkward, and Todoroki simply meets his gaze and holds it. I'm fine. That hurts a bit, but it'll pass. Oh, good! Midoriya looks thoroughly relieved at this. It's weird seeing him so expressive, now after he looks so blank while talking to the adults. Beside him, Todoroki makes a noise of agreement and draws Inasa's attention again. Inasa's gut still curls at the sight of him, but the feeling is duller now. It's hard to hate someone after you've seen them hold and comfort a crying friend. Before he can think of what to say, he finds himself presented with the top of Todoroki's head as the other boy dips in a short, sort of backward bow. She was targeting me, Todoroki says without quite meeting Inasa's eyes. Or both of us. Either way, you shouldn't have been involved, but you ended up getting caught up in it anyway. Sorry about that. Are you seriously apologizing to me for something a villain did? Inasa asks incredulously. Todoroki shrugs. You were collateral damage in an attack against me. Whatever problem there is between us, I certainly don't want you getting dragged into something awful because of me. You can accept it or not, but it didn't sit right with us not to at least say something. You really don't remember, do ya? Inasa says, and for a moment, Todoroki seems to shrink in on himself. I take it you guys have met before? Midoriya says, glancing between them. It would have been at the demonstration, right? Todoroki says, for recommended students. You'll probably call it petty, Inasa says, crossing his arms. After I edged you out in our scores, I went up to you to introduce myself as a future classmate. You pushed past me and told me to stay out of your way. Even out of his own mouth, it feels like such a small thing, and he shakes his head. Yes, it probably sounds stupid, but it played out almost word for word like a running I had with a Dever, years ago. Brought up some bad memories, and the fact that both of you were considered top class by UA ended up souring me to the idea of attending. By now, Todoroki is staring at him wide-eyed with unmistakable recognition. And that's something, Inasa supposes. He had to jog his memory, but at least there was something in there to be jogged in the first place. Yeah, that is kind of petty, Midoriya says. Midoriya, Todoroki sighs. What? It is! I mean, shuffling past the fact that he judged an entire school on 2 people, while ignoring the dozens of other UA-trained heroes who turned out fine. It's not like you told him you were gonna kick his ass on live TV! Midoriya! Or accused him of being an illegitimate child! Regardless, I am sorry about that. Todoroki cuts him off and Midoriya lets him. A few things have changed for me since then, and I'm sorry you had to meet me back then. I wasn't in a very good place at the time, and I shouldn't have taken it out on you. It's as sincere an apology as he could have hoped for. Frankly, Inasa hadn't expected one at all. Think I might have misjudged you, he admits. Voices call out from across the parking lot. The UA crowd is calling the two of them over. Looks like we're leaving, Midoriya says. Bye, Arashi. Glad you're okay. Let's go, Todoroki. Coming. Guess I'll see you at Marine training, Inasa says gruffly. Todoroki's mouth quirks to one side. It's almost a smile. The incident is dealt with delicately, but word spreads among the students anyway. Once they're back at the dorms, Aizawa Sensei gives them all a brief, stern lecture on the importance of discretion with ongoing investigations before releasing them. The moment they're all free, Izuku finds himself and Todoroki inundated with questions. It's Ina who saves them in the end, fending off nearly the entire class, long enough for Izuku to get the word in so that they can properly explain things. Wait! Bakugo's eyes widened with furious realization. That bitch touched me! What? Kirishima looks alarmed. Someone touched the back of my neck in the second round, and when I turned around all I saw was Baldy and some other girl. He seethed, scratching at his collarbone. It's the spot where Toga slashed him in Camino. It didn't scar, but it was still the deepest wound he received that night. It's almost a relief to hear him yelling again, for all that it sets Izuku's teeth on edge. Bakugo has been eerily quiet since the results of the exams were released. He's the only one besides Todoroki who didn't pass, and his tense silence is far more unnerving than his usual volatile rage. Todoroki seems fine for the most part. The temperature in the common room stays steady, and his usual calm facade doesn't seem to be a strain on him. He's quieter than usual, avoiding questions and letting Izuku do most of the talking. At some point, Mika crawls into his lap, and from that moment on, he ignores the rest of the class. It's getting on to early evening when the others finally disperse to talk amongst themselves, share the news of the exam results with family, or in Ina's case, go straight to bed in preparation for the start of the new term tomorrow. Todoroki dozes on the couch with Mika curled up on his stomach, and Izuku is about to join him when Hino sits down heavily next to him. It's sudden enough to startle Ray, who perches on the back of the couch and swats at his head. You know, Hino says, when I told you what I did at Camino, I never said anything about you keeping it to yourself. Izuku looks at him, confused. Not about me, Hino says quickly. You can do what you want with that, but come on, kid. You've been quiet about Dabi. Have you even told anyone? Sent in a tip. Hino doesn't know sign language, so Izuku keeps his voice at his usual muttering volume. Straight to Tsukuruchi. Fat Latigas, that'll do. Hino snorts. You know how many crackpot tips get called into the police these days? Loads. I used to do stupid shit like that in Ascot, and now tips aren't good enough. If you're worried about telling people about your power, All Might knows now, doesn't he? Izuku purses his lips. Todoroki said Toga brought up his family. Did she? Talk about how much he took after Daddy Dearest? Yeah. Hino pulls a face. Clever little tart brought up my sister, too. She hit him right where it hurt. Do you think that maybe Dabi? Hino frowns deeply, pursing his lips. Damn. I didn't think to ask the ghosts about her when they told me who she was, but... Nah. For one thing, he wouldn't have had to. Arashi, the real one, mind you, compared him to Endeavor before the second round started, and Shota took it about as well as you'd expect. If she saw that, she could have built off of it. Is there another thing? Yeah, Hino frowns. She thought it was Endeavor who scarred him. His brothers didn't stick around long, but they didn't clear out till after my sister was hospitalized. Fuyumi knew, and she wouldn't have fibbed, not even to protect them. She's not the bravest girl, but she's sensible and honest. Izuku's mouth twists. Okay, you're right. He looks at Todoroki, who still dozes fitfully on the other end of the couch. I think I'll tell him at least. I don't think it should get out now. We just lost one number one. Much as he deserves it, now's not the time to start discrediting the new one. Not until things are more stable. Hino sighs harshly. Fair enough, it's your world. Mom already dead, so what do I care? Please stop pretending to be an uncaring asshole. It doesn't work anymore. Eat me! Hino snorts the nuts. Heads up! Izuku looks up to see Bakugo approaching and braces himself on instinct. He doesn't shake. He might have, if Bakugo had taken him by surprise. But it's hard to get caught off guard when he's surrounded by invisible people willing to warn him about things. So he watches warily as Bakugo stalks toward him and past him, every inch of him tense. Deku! He bites out. Meet me outside later. We need to talk. Without waiting for a reply, he keeps walking. Ray blows a raspberry that he doesn't hear. Charming, Hino says dryly. That's Bakugo, Izuku murmurs. He's always been like that. Ignore him, Ray says. He's stupid and he'll just hit you again. Izuku sighs deeply. She's probably right. Are you going to? Izuku jumps. Todoroki's eyes are shut, but apparently he's awake and aware. I thought you were asleep. He's loud. Todoroki opens his eyes halfway. Curfew soon. Think you'll be done in time. I don't think it'll matter to him, Izuku says. What do you think? Todoroki's mouth tightens a little, only for a moment. I try to avoid wandering outside after dark with someone I don't trust, he says. And you don't trust him. Not really. Izuku's voice trails off. In his mind, he goes back to the warehouse in Kamino. The taste of blood, the burn of his broken wrist, Bakugo's hand shaking against his shoulder as it heats up, and I don't fucking want to! I don't not trust him anymore. He swallows hard. Kamino changed things. How so? I don't know! Izuku's voice cracks. But things are different now somehow, and I don't know if it's because of me or him or both of us, but... His chest feels heavy. I think I have to. You don't have to if you don't want to. I can't just avoid him! You told me once that avoiding things that hurt you doesn't count as weakness, Todoroki says sharply. And it didn't change your mind either, Izuku shoots back. Todoroki doesn't answer, except with a look of flat disapproval. It's almost identical to the looks on Hino and Rei's faces. If this is because of what I told you about what happened years ago, Izuku's throat closes up. I told you because for the first time in years it felt okay to talk about it. Not because I need protecting. He's a bully, not a villain. I can handle him. Todoroki looks unconvinced. Rei, even more so. Also, he said he wanted to talk. And Bakugo, I don't think he's ever said that to me before, so that's something. Will it last? Todoroki asked dryly. Maybe not, but it's worth it to try. Todoroki holds his gaze a moment more, then shrugs and looks away. Try not to get dragged into a fight. You'd get suspended before the first day of the new term. With a sigh, Izuku gets up. If he just wants to pick a fight, then I'll leave. I'll see you later. For a moment, it looks as if Todoroki wants to say more, but in the end he shrugs and lies back again. I'm keeping your cat. That's what I thought you were going to say. He doesn't want to go, if he's being honest. He wants to go to bed. He wants to forget about everything that happened today. He wants to do anything but deal with Bakugo. But he also wants this dealt with. He wants things that he can't have, but that's nothing new. Bakugo is waiting for him just outside. It's not yet curfew, but it's close enough that Izuku knows they probably won't finish whatever this is without getting yelled at. He walks down the steps, hands clenched in his pockets, and watches Bakugo turn and walk away with a jerk of his head. Let's go. We can't talk out here? Izuku asks. Hands close around his wrist, and he looks back to see Rei clutching him, scowling darkly at Bakugo's back. Bakugo pauses. Fine, if you don't mind people hearing when we talk about your quirk. His eyes narrow. Or your quirks. Hearing those words is like being plunged in ice water. Numbly, Izuku follows him. They don't go far. But where they do go is a place with fewer cameras, fewer lights, fewer chances of being interrupted. Izuku's hands are clammy, his pulse pounds in his ears, and it takes a few tries to breathe normally again. He forces himself blink like he always does. "What's this about?" Izuku's voice sounds hollow even to him. They're a safe distance from the dorms. No one's likely to overhear them, even if they yell. Across from him, Bakugo scowls, hands deep in his pockets. "So how many do you actually have?" he asks, his tone grating. Ray pulls closer as Izuku answers, "How many what?" "Don't play games with me," Bakugo grits out. "I know you have more than one quirk. 2 at least. Would have thought that was fucking impossible, but then we met him." Izuku winces. Part of him wants to say, it has nothing to do with all for one, but really it has everything to do with him. He opens his mouth to reply, but his throat closes up and it feels as if his stomach is trying to crawl up his throat. He's not safe anymore. This isn't Todoroki, or Uraraka, or Ida, or All Might. The last time he answered a question like this from Bakugo... "Well," Bakugo snaps. "Why do you think that?" Izuku answers, voice shaking. "Strength isn't enough for you." "Do you think I'm stupid?" Bakugo's voice rings out like a gunshot. "You think I don't notice how fucking off you are all the time?" He pauses, making a scalding noise in the back of his throat. "They've got to be blind or deaf to miss so much, but I'm not. Everybody hears you mutter. Everybody knows you don't shut up, even if you're quiet about it, but they don't listen. They don't hear what you're actually saying. They don't hear you talk to people. Lots of people talk to themselves. I said don't play games. I don't know what you want from me!" Izuku yells back, but that's not quite true. He does know what he wants, but even if there was something to tell, why would I tell you? Bakugo's palms spark, his quirk popping and flashing with temper, and Izuku recoils as if those firecracker bursts were aimed at him. Bakugo's hands curl into fists, cutting off the bursts, and he clenches his teeth in a grimace. "What's the matter, Deku?" Bakugo asks. "Are you scared of me?" He takes a step forward, and Rei moves in front of Izuku immediately. "Think I'm a villain?" Izuku freezes. "What?" "You think I don't see it?" Bakugo barks out. "You think I don't know what people say? I have eyes and ears and a fucking brain, Deku! I've heard what people say about you. I know something went down in Ozu. I saw you in the forest, and I was fucking there at Kamino! Bakugo, what? You handled them!" Bakugo yells, stepping forward. "Every single fucking time I've seen you up against a villain, you've handled them! Useless, quirkless freak Deku goes up against every villain and fucking smiles at them! You went up against Goldam all for one, and you fucking smiled!" He stops, breath coming in and out in harsh, trembling gasps. Izuku stares at him, speechless, as his breathing starts to hitch. "And all I have to do is grab you and you fold like wet fucking paper! You're afraid of me! Villains are nothing, but I'm the one that scares you!" "Can you blame me?" Izuku blurts out. "You've been treating me like dirt since daycare, and you're surprised that I flinched when you swing at me!" "Then what about the Toga bitch? What about All For One? What about Shigaraki fucking Tomura? Do you think they wouldn't kill you as long as you keep grinning like an idiot whenever they looked at you? They were nothing to you, but I..." His voice cracks and he stops and presses his mouth shut, his eyes widening. He's shaking from head to toe. "They weren't nothing," Izuku tells him. "I was always afraid, Bakugo. I'm always afraid." "Bullshit!" Bakugo spits. "You handled that, but you don't handle me, and... Why the fuck..." He stops again, ducking his head, raking his fingers through his hair until they twist and tangle and yank. In spite of himself, Izuku finds himself stepping forward past Rei. "Bakugo!" Bakugo explodes again without warning. "What is the fucking problem?" He almost roars. "What am I doing wrong?" For a moment, all Izuku can do is gape. "What?" "I started the same as you, the same as everyone. I saw All Might, I saw how he fought, how he won, no matter what happens. I watched him fight, I watched him take down every villain he went up against, and I wanted that! I wanted to pay him!" He stops for a moment, chest heaving. "And you kept chasing that, no matter how fucking hopeless it was! No matter how much of a creepy, worthless freak you were! And suddenly it's like you are him! He plays favorites and picks you! Nobody else! Not me, not fucking Hat-Face or Ponytail or anybody else! It's you! Everybody fucking worships the ground you walk on, and I..." To Izuku's alarm, he sees the corners of Bakugo's eyes glisten. That shithead reporter called me a villain! Fucking Aizawa said it too! And Aizawa didn't... Shut up, Deku! His voice cracks again, twice in a few words. Where the fuck did they come from? Why the fuck do you have two? Why is one of them eyes? Izuku flinches. I don't know what you're talking about. You're a liar. Bakugo snaps, and in that moment, so does Izuku. I know that! He shoots back. So what if everyone we know? Why would I tell you? Bakugo recoils, eyes widening as if Izuku just took a swing at him. They narrow again, shining oddly in what little light there is. Fine, he growls. I don't need you to tell me, because I already know. All Light plays favorites, and he picked you. And all of a sudden you grow a fucking quirk, maybe two. And we just met that fucker in Camino who steals quirks. Who knows All Might. He raises his head, red eyes blazing. And it's his, isn't it? You have All Might's quirk, not just a similar quirk. It's his. There's a leaden pit in Izuku's chest, weighing him down to the stomach. Bakugo's halfway there. If only he'd had an open mind when they were 7, he'd have the whole truth. Let's say you're right, he says shakily. What makes you think I would tell you the truth? The last time I tried to tell you a secret, you called me a liar and set your friends on me. Why should I think this would be any different? Bakugo stares at him. What fucking secret? He snaps. I remember you spouting some crock of shit when we were 8, but I didn't think anything about it because you disappeared right after. 7, Izuku says hollowly. We were 7, Bakugo. Who the hell cares? Suddenly he's shouting again and Izuku was flinching back. You're not answering me! Why the fuck did you come out here if you weren't gonna— I don't know! His voice echoes, cutting off Bakugo's words. I don't know why I'm here! Izuku goes on and the evening dark blurs around him with tears. I don't know what I thought. I don't know what I wanted. I don't know. I just— He tries to breathe in and his chest shakes and hitches and the tears finally spill over. I wasn't going to come out here. They both told me not to come out, but I did it anyway because I thought you were so calm before Bakugo and you talked to me and you didn't yell and you didn't threaten me and I thought that maybe after Camino, maybe you just— Izuku stands there, hot tears dripping down his face as he tries to focus on the pale blur of Bakugo's face. He doesn't hear anything from him. He's as good as blind now, and what his former friend is feeling is anyone's guess. A small cold hand slips into his, squeezing gently. You want to hear something pathetic? He doesn't wait for an answer. I used to have these daydreams, right? I still do sometimes. I'd imagine that you'd come up to me, and for once you wouldn't hurt me or threaten me, and you'd say you were sorry. You say you wish you didn't do all those things, and you were sorry, and you know what's really pathetic about it? I think if you did that, if you said that in real life, if you just looked me in the eye and said you were sorry and meant it, I think I'd forgive you. He chokes out a laugh. Stupid, right? I'm really stupid. I should have listened. I'm sorry, but I'm so tired, Bakugo. I love helping people more than anything, but I don't know how to help you, and I'm just so tired. His body feels heavy, his throat raw. He feels wrung out from head to toe like a damp washcloth, and right now Ray's hand is the only thing keeping him grounded. There's silence, and then across from him, a similar broken laugh reaches him. Fuck! Bakugo's voice breaks again. Ow! How'd it? The noise that he makes might be another laugh, but it's a broken, wretched sound, devoid of anything remotely happy, so what would be the point in calling it that? How did I fuck up this bad? Izuku doesn't answer. My whole life, it's been about All Might, same as you. But I had a quirk, not you. I was gonna be great. I was great. Everybody knew that, and everybody said that. Just like everybody knew you were useless and creepy. He forces out another bitter laugh, voice rising. And now you have All Might's quirk, and I'm the reason he can't be a fucking hero anymore. How fucked up is that? Izuku jerks his head up, startled. You're not— I'm not! Bakugo snarls. I saw you, Deku! You were— Fuck, you had everything handled! You had plans and all I did was run! I was a distraction! Fucking dead weight! I had to get dragged out of that fucking hole while you were stringing those bastard villains along by the balls! Some part of Izuku wonders if he should feel pity, but right now all he feels is bitterness and old scabbed over resentment. You know what your problem is, Bakugo? He says wearily. You always make everything about you. It happens quickly. Bakugo's wet eyes spark, and then his palms spark, and he lunges in a flash of temper the way he often does when he's backed into a corner. One for all comes to Izuku on its own as he flinches back, and Rei charges forward with a shriek and slams straight into Bakugo's chest. Izuku doesn't register it at first. He expects Rei to rush through him like she always does. So when Bakugo lands flat on his back with Rei perched on his chest and still screeching with rage, all he can do is blink in confusion. It's not until he sees Bakugo's eyes wide with shock and locked on Rei's hunched, snarling form that he realizes what's happening. Rei, no! Her fingers are growing long and sharp when he cries out. When she whips around to look at him, her black eyes ooze. Let him up, Rei, don't hurt him! She hisses a protest, and he shakes his head. Rei, please, we'll only get in more trouble! She hesitates, and a familiar crackle draws his eyes to her arms. Green lightning darts along her skin. Leave him be! He tries to say firmly, but his voice trembles. Let him up! Reluctantly, she backs away from him, still hissing as she returns to Izuku's side. Bakugo scrambles to his feet, and... It's not a fluke. It's not going away. His eyes are still fixed on Rei, wide with shock and alarm. Okay. This is happening. What was that about a carcassonne? Izuku asks. What the fuck is that? Bakugo hisses. Rei hisses back and sparkles with green. Izuku looks down at Rei, then back at Bakugo. The terror is back, cold crawling panic threatening to creep up his spine and outward. That's a ghost, Bakugo. He tries to take a breath, but it feels like he's breathing through a straw. She's a ghost. I see ghosts. You were right, sort of. The lump in his throat breaks his voice to pieces, and no amount of swallowing will make it go away. I have 2 quirks, and one was given to me by All Might, but this one is mine. It's always been mine. Bakugo is silent for a long time. He stares at Rei until the green sparks disappear, and then he blinks and flicks his gaze back to Izuku. Where'd it go? She's still here, Izuku says. You just can't see her. Bakugo's face twitches. Did All Might know about that before he gave you a second quirk? No, Izuku replies. So you lied to him too, then? Izuku tenses, bridling. I've told him the truth already. But you lied to him first. What of it? Izuku shoots back. And why wouldn't I after what happened when I told you? At this, Bakugo blinks at him. His eyes cloud over with shock and confusion, and something in Izuku's chest, some squirming, twitching uncertainty, finally settles. Bakugo, he says cautiously. Do you even remember what happened when I told you? Bakugo blinks at him again, and part of Izuku is satisfied at how desperate he's started to look. Do you even remember what I told you at all? It was... Bakugo's eyes flicker to Rei, or to him, the empty spot where Rei was previously standing, and back up to Izuku's face. That was back in 2nd grade, right? Fuck, it was that fucking long ago. You can't expect me to just... Yes, I can, Izuku cuts him off. Because I remember it. The closet is always with him, just out of his reach, unless he's in the throes of panic. It's cloudy, otherwise all vague feelings and wispy, incomplete memories. I've tried to forget, Izuku continues. His eyes burn, but they're dry. He's run out of tears already. I try every day to forget, but I can't, because that day, it changed everything. For me, it changed me. And because of that, I don't know how to not lie anymore. His throat bobs as he swallows. And that's why I'm afraid of you, Bakugo. That's why I don't see you the way you want to be seen. Because you want to be a hero, and yet you can hurt someone like that. Rei clutches his hand again. You can hurt them so bad that they still think about it, and the scars still itch, and it shaped the person they are, and not even remember. It was the worst day of my life, Bakugo. But it was just another Wednesday for you, wasn't it? Only silence meets this. It stretches long enough for Izuku to be sure that Bakugo won't answer, long enough for Rei's temper to cool. "For what it's worth, you're wrong," Izuku says. "It wasn't you that caused All Might's end. If anything, it was me." Bakugo jerks his head up. "He gave me his quirk. His power was already on the way out, and by Camino he was running on fumes. You had nothing to do with it." When Bakugo speaks again, his voice is raspy and quiet.
"The hell I didn't!"
"He's right, young Bakugo. You should listen to him."
Bakugo's palms spark again, this time with alarm. It's only All Might, and Anna, of course, striding down the walk to join them. It's well after dark, well after curfew, and Izuku ducks his head. All Might passes him, pausing with a gentle hand on his shoulder to check for injuries, and then moves on until he reaches Bakugo. Nana stays by Izuku's side, hovering over him and Rei in an almost protective manner.
"I didn't want to interrupt,"
he says with a sigh.
"It seemed important what you were talking about, and since it didn't quite come to blows, I didn't step in. But Midoriya is right. What happened at Camino was not your fault."
Bakugo's fists clench.
"I didn't even—"
"What happened at Camino was this, young Bakugo,"
All Might says.
"I did what I have always done. I did my job. Do you think a hero begrudges those that he saves for not rescuing themselves and saving him the trouble?"
Bakugo flinches.
"Needing rescue is not a weakness,"
All Might continues.
"It is not something to be ashamed of. How would heroes do what needs to be done if they resented and looked down upon those they should protect? You are not to blame for what happened to you, young Bakugo, nor are you to blame for what happened to me. No one is to blame but the villains who have harmed us."
Another flinch, this time when All Might reaches out and rests his hand on the back of Bakugo's head.
"You've made a great many mistakes,"
he says.
"Some can be fixed, some can be forgiven, but that isn't for you to decide. All you can do is learn and move forward and fix what you can. That's what everyone does when they make mistakes. That's what I try to do."
Gently he draws Bakugo into the lightest hug possible, just one arm across his shoulders and no more.
"I'm sorry that I didn't realize you were struggling."
Bakugo doesn't return it. He doesn't quite pull away, but he doesn't lean into it either. He stands stock still and ramrod straight, fists still clenched at his sides.
"This isn't—"
Bakugo's voice is rough and quiet.
"It wasn't supposed to be this way."
All Might lets him go and Bakugo steps back and out of his reach, still looking at the ground.
"Far too many things are out of our control. All you can do is decide what to do with what you can control. Your choices, your actions, your reasons."
He pauses.
"I'm not blind. I know that so many heroes that came after me were chasing my image. But you can't just pick and choose what you like about being a hero and ignore the rest. You want to win, and that's good. But you can't forget why. We don't triumph for its own sake. We fight to win so that we can save people. It does a hero no good to only think of his own desires. And Midoriya is right. It isn't always about you."
Izuku ducks his head.
"Why him?"
Bakugo's voice cracks.
Why'd you pick him?"
"A few reasons.
All Might answers.
But at the end of the day, I chose him because I was afraid, and he gave me courage."
Izuku's breath hitches, but All Might doesn't seem to notice.
"And this can't get out, you know that, right? The power that I gave him has been a closely guarded secret for generations, and this world is... well, it's about to get more dangerous. Do you understand, young Bakugo?"
Bakugo nods.
"Good. In any case, it's well after curfew.
All Might continues.
The first day of the new term is tomorrow. Come back to the drops now. Aizawa wants a word with you before you go to bed."
The walk back is quiet. Nana's hand rests on Izuku's shoulder. Rei's curls into one of his, and All Might falls in a step beside him.
"All right?"
he asks, and his eyes hold far more. Concern and pride, and an unspoken apology. "I'm fine," Izuku murmurs back. All the while Bakugo says nothing. Sure enough, Aizawa-sensei is waiting for them when they return. He doesn't quite look angry, but he does look thoroughly unimpressed. "I'm sure you both had an excellent reason for wandering around nearly a half hour past curfew," he says flatly.
and I'd love to hear it.
Izuku shuts his eyes and braces himself for a punishment.
That was my idea.
Bakugo bites out. Izuku has to make an effort not to gape at him. We were having a conversation, he says.
A conversation.
Aizawa has the look of a man with a 7-hour-long migraine.
And is there a reason why this conversation couldn't have taken place inside? Or tomorrow?
It got sort of personal, Izuku answers, and loud.
If I may, Aizawa.
All Might breaks in a little meekly.
I know that rules are in place for a reason, but at the same time, their discussion did turn to things that I would rather not have been overheard, so I'm a bit grateful they didn't hold the shouting match in the common room, or in either of their rooms. Thin walls, you understand.
Aizawa gives him a withering look.
Of course,
he says acidly and sighs again.
Obviously, breaking curfew and therefore school regulations has consequences. You've been told this. Both of you will report back here immediately after orientation tomorrow. You'll be spending your free hours tomorrow cleaning the common room area from top to bottom. If you're quick, this won't stretch over multiple days and cut into your homework time. Understand?
They nod.
Good. Go to bed.
Izuku suppresses a sigh of relief. It's a slap on the wrist, hardly even an official punishment. It could have been much worse. Maybe if it had come to a fight, it would have been. Bakugo goes to the elevator, and Izuku keeps walking toward the stairwell.
Daku!
Izuku looks back. Bakugo's eyes are fixed on the elevator door as he waits for it to calm down.
It was an empty closet that we couldn't even lock.
The door is open, but he doesn't walk in right away.
It wasn't supposed to.
Good night, Bakugo, Izuku says. I hope you find what you're looking for. Todoroki is still awake after Izuku is finished getting ready for bed. His room is dark when Izuku taps on his door and opens it, but when he looks at his friend, he finds Todoroki watching him, as if he'd been waiting for him.
How'd it go?
Todoroki asks when Izuku settles down next to him.
I don't know.
Do you want to talk about it? Not really. Izuku shuts his eyes. There are paws walking along his leg. Todoroki must have brought Mika into his own room. What about you? Are you okay after today? Todoroki is silent for a while.
No,
he whispers hoarsely.
Today made me realize that no, I'm not. There are things I thought I'd gotten over that I haven't.
You could have ended up a lot worse, Izuku points out. He's surprised when Todoroki shifts closer and wraps an arm around him. Todoroki usually isn't the one that initiates clinging.
Yeah,
he says hoarsely.
I know. Thanks, Midoriya.
You called me Izuku earlier.
Sorry.
It's fine, Izuku says. Anybody who takes me at my word that ghosts are real gets to call me Izuku. Todoroki doesn't say much of anything after that, so Izuku huddles closer and tries to shut his mind off from all thoughts of Toga, Himiko, and Bakugo Katsuki.
That was lenient of you,
All Might remarks.
Was it?
Shoda asks, dreading the agony headache. Green tea is lovely, but it can't work miracles.
A bit?
The former symbol of peace shrugs.
Considering your track record of expulsions.
Shoda snorts into his tea.
You're joking, right? Bakugo just resolved a dispute with verbal communication. I'm tempted to give him extra credit.